Well, hello, my fellow Americans and ranters. I hope everyone's doing great. You're watching another episode of the Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. And, I'm only saying Americans just because of the theme of the movie we're talking about, but this is really for anybody. If we have any international fans, please feel free to comment. That'd be nice if we did, but I don't know. Anyways, we are talking about a movie I've been looking forward to for the last several months. I have one guy at work, he was like, "You've been hyping it up. Is it actually going to be good?" I was like, "I don't know. I just want to see it." And we are talking about Alex Garland's newest film, Civil War. And this is non-spoilers always, so please do not forget to give us a like. If you do like the video, please ring the bell just to stay up to date for notifications, and subscribe. We want to keep the ranting base growing so we could just all talk about movies and nerd out together, all that good stuff. So we appreciate you. So this is it's funny. This is one of those movies I have like. I'm not trying to speak for Byrne, but from what he's told me, this is one of those movies that has, shocked us, and where I'm still trying to absorb it and process it because it was such a visual audio experience. It's crazy. I haven't felt this unsettled since watching like Sicario or even Wind River years ago, where it's just one of those movies that was like, wow, that just happened, or I could let out a sigh of relief that it's over now and just feel somewhat safe. The short end of the stick with this story is that Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Moura, Kaylee Spaney, I think I'm saying that right, and Stephen McKinley Henderson, they're just, war journalists and writers, photographers who are, trying to make their way through a very war-torn United States towards D.C. to interview the president, who is played by Nick Offerman, who's a dictator-like president, and that's pretty much how I can really go into it, and that's kind of the broad strokes of it all. Like even people have been asking me, what's it about, what's this and that, and it's like, again, I'm still processing it, so it's a little hard to put in the clearest words, but bottom line is this was such a well done movie. Like the cinema, I think this is some of the best cinematography. This and Dune Part 2 are like my two number one movies right now. It's kind of hard to pick which one's which at this one, so definitely 1 and 2 right now. Just, man, such great acting all around. And before I keep geeking out about it, I need to collect my words together. Byrne, what did you think of this movie?
Yeah, so coming into this one, I will admit that I was a little bit, I guess on guard for it, just because it's like, okay, like you have the whole, Civil War aesthetic to it. And it's like, okay, it can go either way. It can either just kind of use that as sort of like a way to sensationalize the whole thing. It could probably have like nothing to say. We'll just have like a throwaway war movie with, that as sort of the aesthetic of it. Or we might get something deeper, and it being from Alex Garland, who I've been a huge fan of since he's started directing, even since he's been writing, with movies like Sunshine and 28 Days Later. But I really became a big fan of his when he started directing, and so that was like one of those things. Okay, looking forward to that. And of course, since it was like, okay, A24's producing it, and this is their biggest budget movie to date, it's like, all right, there's some substance behind this too, where a lot of the marketing and stuff focuses on the grander aspects of it. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be more to it, because Alex Garland is not that type of filmmaker that's just going to focus on the surface level aspect of this sort of thing. And that's definitely not the case. That we didn't get that version of this movie, which I'm so glad for, because that just kind of would have been stale and boring, and something that's like predictable, and something honestly no one really needs. So I'm glad it was much more than that. Although the scale of this movie is big, the focus of it is small, and I really did appreciate that. Like you said, we're focusing in on these four journalists and their cross-country road trip to go interview the president amidst, all this chaos going on around them. And I thought that was such a narratively brilliant choice, that they decided to hone in on that aspect and not make it a plot-driven story as much as it is a character-driven story, where we're seeing, this whole war-torn landscape through the eyes of people who are documenting this sort of thing. And what effect does that have on them? How do they approach the subject matter? We've seen it happen, in the real world, where, we have our journalists go to different countries and, document things that are going on there. But what changes, when the war front is in the home front, so it's like, what effect does that have on them? And I'm glad that, that we focused in on mainly Kirsten Dunst and Kaylee Spaney's characters, which I thought were absolutely fantastic. You have one, at the height and tail end of their career, and someone green just starting in. So you get two different perspectives on the events we see in this movie, which are very, very harrowing. But the fact that we have, different perspectives on it, I thought lent itself to a lot of meat on the bone. As I mentioned to you, this movie feels like there's so much to chew on and to digest, and with those two characters in particular. So the fact that, again, that this is a character focused movie and it doesn't get lost in the minutia and in the over explaining of the circumstances of it all, I think allows it to be a much deeper picture than it could have been had it gone the other way.
Yeah, again, we can't really go into too much detail because it will spoil stuff to a certain degree. But like I said, the work, the sound, the music choices, and the acting are all so powerful. Kirsten Dunst and Kaylee Spaney, they really sold it. Just almost like mirrors, like two sides of the same coin when it comes to being a war journalist and or war photographer. And Wagner Moura, he just has a good energy on screen. He's almost like, how do I put this? It's almost like Byrne and I were kind of talking about. Byrne does put in the best way, where my version of it is just, it's almost like how people kind of view certain stuff. Like there's people like Kirsten Dunst who've been through it all, doesn't phase them one bit. Wagner Moura is kind of like on the middle, where they know what's going on, but they look at it from like a sideline point of view. And then Kaylee Spaney's just completely green into the whole thing. So I thought it was just very well done with these actors. And also Stephen McKinley Henderson, his character was almost like the hopeful side of what you would want to see out of all this stuff. Like you look towards the light at the end of the tunnel, essentially. So yeah, I definitely have to go see it just to kind of really think on it and just absorb it all again. But there were some really heavy stuff. So this is one of those movies, while not necessarily a lot of action in it, but there's some pretty horrific things that you don't really see a lot, especially in war movies nowadays. Like goes without saying, war is horrible no matter what side you're on of it or how movies have been depicting it. But I think this one just hits home in a very different way, especially because we're a country who's had a civil war, and it's one of the most famous wars in history. And yeah, just to kind of see it modernized, see a version of it modernized, and see what would happen modern day is just, nightmarish and just atrocious. So, having said all that, I'm giving this movie a hard 5 out of 5 because Alex Garland just keeps knocking out of the park. And if he is honest that he's no longer going to be doing filmmaking, I think this is a hell of a movie to end his career on. And yeah, and then I'm just looking forward to seeing more Kirsten Dunst. Jesse Plemons, her husband, was in it again, and I saw a meme where he's one of those guys, one of those actors, when you see him in a movie, he instantly makes it better, and it's like, they're kind of right. Jesse Plemons is just so much fun to watch on screen. So, yeah, I definitely recommend this. Definitely recommend for IMAX because you'll get that audio and visual experience the best for this one, especially when the action hits, because it does hit. So, yeah, 5 out of 5 from me, Byrne.
Yeah, I mean, look, the word that you use, I think that best describes this movie is, in fact, nightmarish. It would be hard for me to categorize this movie as a war movie, because it's really kind of just a horror movie at its root. It like you said, it doesn't sensationalize, it doesn't glamorize any of the violence that we've seen on screen. All of it is depicted as very harsh, brutal, and horrific, and absolutely tense and nerve wracking. There were multiple times, when there were gunshots on screen where I would, flinch in my seat just because, because of the horrible imagery that we're seeing, but also, like you mentioned, the incredible sound effects and the sound design that was going on here, paired with the great cinematography. It just made the whole experience just incredibly stressful. The first thing I told you when I came out of the theater was I haven't been this tense in a movie since Sicario, and like you said, this when the movie ends, it's like it feels like okay, I can breathe now for the first time in like 2 hours. So that this movie definitely has that sort of effect on you, and I mean it definitely had it on me, and I think it will have it for a lot of people that go into this movie. But yeah, this is like again, this is one of those movies where it's not too concerned about the broader aspects of it all. What it really is concerned with is just the effect that war has on people. With who doesn't matter which side you're on, you're going to be affected in your everyday life if it's around you, and it's horrible and it's absolutely brutal, and it's not something that we should just be apathetic towards. And that's another thing that this movie's touching on is the apathy, that being able to distance yourself from these sort of things, and again to focus on war journalists who are in the thick of it. How does that sort of affect them and their own personal life? And so yeah, this movie has a lot to say, and like you said, I'm still digesting a lot of it, but it's incredibly filmed, it's incredibly captured. All the technical aspects of it are amazing, and yeah, I mean, Kirsten Dunst is the star of this movie, and I thought she did a fantastic job. And like you mentioned, Jesse Plemons is an absolute scene stealer, one of the most tense scenes I've seen in a movie theater in a very long time. And just yeah, this whole movie is one that I'm going to be thinking about for a while. And Alex Garland is and continues to be one of the most effective filmmakers in the industry. So I hope he's not completely written himself off. I'm pretty sure when you hear creators say like, oh, I'm done, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll believe it when I see it. But with someone like that, it's like, yeah, no, they got to continue to make more stuff, and I'm very much looking forward to whatever he does next in whatever capacity he decides to do. But yeah, Civil War for me is also going to be a 5 out of 5. Although for you it's going to be a hard one for me to recommend, just because it's one of those movies where like I appreciated everything that was going on and all the technical aspects of it and everything that happened, but it's not one I want to watch again because of a lot of those things. But yeah, an incredibly effective piece of filmmaking, and I'd be hard pressed if this doesn't make it somewhere in my top 10 or 5 of the year by the end of this year. So yeah, really great movie. Don't want to watch it again.
I think it's one of those things people probably should go see it. Like again, it's a movie, it's fictional, and while it does have a political aspect to it, giving called the Civil War and the state of our political landscape right now in society, it's one of those movies that this is not only a cautionary tale about keeping humanity and that we gotta like just be people to each other. It's also like this can happen, especially with how certain people feel. It's like this is a warning to society, and I think it's necessary for people to see this movie. Whether you're political or not, whether you don't like the guy's work or not, it's just a solid movie. It's one of the few. It's one of the few movies. Again, I love Doom Part 2. It's still my favorite one, and this is very contrastly different. But this is one of those movies I rarely say it is art at its finest form in cinema, and I just got to tip my hat off to A24. They know what to go with, the right people and stuff. So they're just, again, I love anything A24 attached to it. I'm most likely gonna watch, even though if I don't like some of their stuff. But anyways, I keep raving about this, Bernard. You're probably you're definitely the smarter one of both of us. So you're smart not to want to see it, but it's one of those movies I'm like, I have to go see it again just to absorb it and just really let it keep hitting home. Again, I mean, so good.
Like art can be entertaining and it can be definitely like emotionally draining for sure, and can leave you questioning things. And yeah, this is one of those times where it's like, it's not, I wouldn't call it entertainment, but I would call it emotionally effective. And yeah, it's just one of those movies where it's like you should go watch it for sure because of the things that it does have to say. But yeah, just be prepared to be put through the ringer on this one.
Yeah, and I feel for those who really don't care for it or don't like it, I'm like, you must have missed the point, or you were just, I don't know what to say. But when you did bring it up about Sicario, I was like, it can't be like that. And then when I was watching, I was like, oh my god, it is exactly like that. But For those of you who have seen this movie, what did you think of it? We'd love to hear your thoughts on it, just to keep the conversation going. But until next time, everyone, I will say this is the movie that made me want to watch a good, happy movie right after, just to kind of take the edge off. So keep that in mind. Maybe have a good comedy or animated or just a good feeling film after this. But I'm all asking you, just stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Over here on the Bodacious, man, we like to keep it classy. We like to keep it fun for everyone. But
we try.
we try. But yeah, be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.